Councilmember Abdelgawad.
Here.
Councilmember Barber.
Present.
Councilmember Berenson.
Present.
Councilmember Burke.
Present.
Councilmember Holman.
Present.
Councilmember Kellogg.
Present.
Councilmember Moorhead.
Present.
Councilmember Townsend.
Present.
Mayor Turnbow.
Present. Could you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The next item on our agenda tonight is presentations and awards. We have a couple of awards tonight. The first one being to our own chair of our Planning and Zoning Commission, and Mr. Jerry Faulkner. Could you please join me? Over the past month, the Missouri Municipal League had their Civic Leadership Award banquet, and at that banquet you couldn't be present because you had a church affair that you were attending, and we appreciate you doing that as well. But tonight I wanted to present this award to you, sir, that was presented that evening in your honor to you personally. The Civic Leadership Award through the Missouri Municipal League is awarded annually. All of the municipalities within the Westgate region provide a candidate that's worthy of this award, and we certainly felt like you're very worthy of this, sir. And I would like to read the write-up that was provided on this particular award. Excuse me. Keep my glasses here. It says, for more than a decade on the Raymore Planning and Zoning Commission, Chairman Jerry Faulkner has tackled some of the toughest issues facing our community with a steady thoughtfulness and a level of care that makes him a true community leader. Even before he was appointed to the Planning and Zoning Commission, Mr. Faulkner had a keen interest in our city and its future. As a Raymore area resident for nearly 40 years, Mr. Faulkner helped shape the city's growth management plan and had achieved, and on numerous occasions, been before the City Council to discuss issues related to development in his neighborhood. It was this interest and passion that stood out to elected leaders like former Mayor Juan Alonso, who encouraged Mr. Faulkner to look beyond the issues affecting his block and help make a difference throughout the community. Mr. Faulkner took this challenge and he began working to guide Raymore through unprecedented growth and a population boom that more than doubled during the period of his involvement with our community. To this day, he continues his role as chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission and is consistently reappointed to this position by his peers due to their resounding confidence in his decorum standards and level of integrity. It is hard to imagine what our community would look like today without his presence and leadership within the Raymore Planning and Zoning Commission. And for that, Jerry, would like to present you with this award. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm almost speechless, but those of you who have served on Planning and Zoning Commission know that I'm probably never speechless for long. It's quite an honor. The commissioners that I serve with now, and many of you former Planning and Zoning Commissioners that I've served with over the years, have been a wonderful partnership, great people to work with, and I think we all have the best interests of Raymore at heart. Mayor Turnbow, you sit as a member of the commission, and I probably say this at the end of every meeting, but I say it because I sincerely mean it. City staff is also a key part of the commission. City staff provides us with wonderful support, and we could not do our mission without that. So I accept the award. I'm flattered, but it's not a solo effort. It's quite a team effort, as you well know. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. We appreciate you. Wow. Let's get a picture with some of our folks back here in the back.
Okay.
Okay.
They don't flash anymore, do they?
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you.
Have
Can
a
I keep
pleasant evening.
this?
Oh, absolutely, sir.
Ah,
Yep.
Thank you. That's, somebody put a lot of thought into that. Thank you very
Oh,
much.
you're welcome, sir. And also on the presentations and awards tonight, we have with us Mr. Chuck Williams, who's with the American Public Works Association, and would like to present an accreditation to our Public Works Department. And along with him is Stephen Miller with the APWA accreditation team.
Mayor and governing body, thank you so much for this opportunity to be here to recognize an outstanding Public Works Department. You know, accreditation is one of continuous improvement, and it takes a huge commitment, not only on the part of the department, but also on the part of the governing body and city administration to undertake accreditation. Currently, there are only 127 accredited agencies in North America. Raymore tonight joins 7 other Missouri cities as becoming accredited. The city formally applied for accreditation in October of 2015 and hosted the evaluation team in June 25th through the 28th of this year. That's less than 2 years. That is very unusual. It's not out of the ordinary for an agency to take well over 2 years to become accredited. So it just shows the commitment that the department had to achieving accreditation. Over 400 practices were reviewed during the evaluator's visit here. Now there's probably around 600 total practices, but agencies only have to review those that apply to them. I don't believe Raymore has any beaches, so that chapter was not covered. The department, though, should be extremely proud, as should the community of this department, because of those over 400 practices, 5 of them were identified as model practices. Now, I've never made a presentation before a governing body for an agency that had more than 2 model practices. And that's even after they went through reaccreditation, so they know what it takes to determine a model practice. Raymore had 5. They were in the area of individualized training reports, HR management, ADA compliance, inspection through the project management chapter, water quality goals through storm and flood management, and policies and procedures in the traffic operations. They're to be commended. Those 5 practices are now being shared with all other agencies currently going through self-accreditation, going through the process, so they can see what type of practice they should be trying to achieve. This is an outstanding record, and Director Krause and Accreditation Manager Melissa Pace and the entire staff should be proud and complimented on their efforts. So on behalf of the American Public Works Association, it's my pleasure to award the formal accreditation plaques to the City of Raymore's Public Works Department tonight.
Mayor and Council, I can't accept this award without acknowledging some folks that are in the audience that I lean on every day. And they are the people that produce and the programs that you comment on at almost virtually every council meeting. With me, starting from on my left, is Steve Welch, my Assistant Public Works Director, Mike Donahoe and Justin Elliott from the Utilities Department. Continuing across is Justin Paith. Justin Paith runs our concrete repairs, and the biggest program he runs is the mud jacking program. Next to him is Melissa Paith, my accreditation manager and administrative assistant for operations and maintenance. Then Margie Sullivan from engineering, and Pascal Smith, Phil Becker, and Lori Crandall. So these are the folks that I lean on every day to keep the city functioning for our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. We very much appreciate all the work that you guys done, and I know how hard it is to achieve this accreditation level. I know Mr. Williams stated that. I can't understate how important it is that the city of Raymore has received this award and how proud we are of you. Thank you, and thank you to your team as well, everyone. Really appreciate you. I know they've got, they'd like to meet outside for some photo ops, so I'm gonna let them retreat to the front porch. Yeah. So now that the audience has left, we don't have any reasons for public hearings?
They'll be very short.
Not so much, huh? Okay. Yeah.
Pretty special in the front row.
That's true. All right, well, so we have no personal appearances, so we'll move on to staff reports. Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Mr. Carteret to make a report for community development.
Thank you, sir. Just 2 items this evening. First, had another good, solid month for building permit activity. We're still slightly ahead of where we were back in a year ago in 2016, so still strong construction activity in our city. And then to give a calendar for upcoming meetings, our Planning and Zoning Commission will meet tomorrow evening. They have 2 items on their agenda. They'll consider the site plan for G&G storage facilities. The owner of this facility, Todd Gladwell, has the American Self-Storage units over in the industrial park and has a need for additional units in the city. So he has purchased property east of Ramblewood and is looking to construct additional storage units on that property. And then the second item is a public hearing for a request for rezoning. This is in the Heritage Hills neighborhood, which is off of Pine Street. It's an undeveloped part of Heritage Hills. Developer is asking to reclassify the zoning of 17 lots from R1 to R2. This is actually the second public hearing that the commission will be holding on this item. It was considered back in May, and the developer went back and created a master plan for the entire acreage that he owns so the commission could see what his future plans are for additional land as well. The commission has canceled its September 5th meeting. We knew there was with the holiday on the 4th, that the council needed to hold a work session on September 5th. So no planning commission meeting that evening, but they will have a meeting on September 19th. They have 2 items on their agenda. The pre-review of the Good Ranch subdivision plat, which was approved back in 2007. It's down off of on the south side of North Cass Parkway. That subdivision plat's being brought back to the commission and the council. They want to slightly modify the plat. If you recall, a number of years ago, Salih Homes had proposed a much different subdivision than what was initially approved, much smaller lots. That proposal's been eliminated. We're going back to the original proposal, but they needed to make a slight modification in lot layout. The lots will be similar to what you currently see in the Stonegate subdivision, so it's really another phase, if you would, of Stonegate. Now, the second item on their agenda will be a public hearing to consider the 2018 to 2022 capital improvement program. That's the required public hearing that the commission must hold. Those are the items currently scheduled for the commission, and that concludes staff report.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of staff? Okay, Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, Mr. Carteret. I would ask Chief Zimmerman to make a report for the police department and emergency management.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn. And if the council would indulge me just for a moment, I would like to introduce my special guest tonight. Miss Elise Mountain from Los Angeles is visiting tonight, and she wanted to see what her grandmother does for a living. So y'all have to really make this exciting. Elise is here, and she's very interested in government, so I told her she could come and see how you all do business. Thank you.
Thank you, Elise.
As Mr. Fearborn indicated, I'm going to give just a little update both on the police department and emergency management tonight. The first thing I'd like to talk about is our upcoming Citizens Academy class. and a little bit about the SRO program, just briefly, because it is on your agenda tonight, so I figured it was a good time to talk about what Officer Lance Goddard does. We are starting our next Citizens Academy class on September the 13th. The class will meet from September 13th through November 1st, and those are Wednesday nights here in the council chambers. And as you all know, those of you who've been through the class, which many of you have, the attendees learn everything from patrol tactics to animal control, juvenile procedures, tactical unit procedures, use of force, traffic enforcement, and all variety of things. So I would encourage any of you who haven't been through the class to talk to your fellow council members about attending, because it is really a great experience for our citizens, learning how the police department operates, and getting folks the opportunity to interact with all of our officers, because any and all of them teach a variety of classes throughout the program. So please encourage your friends and neighbors to come out and join that 8-week class and learn more about how the department operates. Also, again, I did want to mention just a little bit about Officer Goddard. For those of you familiar with that program, we've actually been in partnership with the school district for several years, but in more recent years, created a memorandum of understanding with the school district in order to pay us for his services there. We felt like the partnership was so important in the beginning that originally we had no MOU with the district, and what you'll be seeing tonight is they're actually increasing the funding. They're giving us a raise. This is what the need for the new MOU. But Lance, and before him John Bergman, obviously are a great asset to our young people within the district, because not only is he a presence in the schools, all of the schools in Raymore, and then of course East Middle School as well, but he home visits and he counsels with parents. He is involved in all variety of activity, both during school hours and after hours, and then as our outreach officer as well. He does presentations at Foxwood Springs and for neighborhood associations and a whole variety of other things. So that position has been very important since the creation, and it's an added benefit, obviously, that the school district feels it's as important as well, and is providing funding and now increasing that funding in the coming school year. So we feel like all of those programs that he provides, from anti-bullying to alcohol prevention and all of those things, are just a really important partnership, not only with the district but with the children that we serve. So just a little bit about that, and I'm happy to answer any questions about that. Before I talk a little bit about the exciting upcoming solar eclipse that I came to you all a month ago to talk about, and I know Mr. Murdoch is back there, and he's very excited about the solar eclipse. He's very, very, very excited. One of the things that we wanted to talk about just for a moment was the fact that SEMA, is Mike here too? Mike back here too? That SEMA had reached out through the Metropolitan Emergency Management Committee and RAPIO, which is the Public Information Officers Association through Mark as well, had reached out to PIOs throughout the metropolitan region who have drone capability. And you will hear much more about drones in the future going forward, but drones are the technology now of the future, and you see them deployed in police departments and public agencies such as ours. And so what SEMA was looking to do is they were looking to capture all of the activity that will be associated with the eclipse. Obviously not just the eclipse and not just the video of those kinds of things, but also the hundreds of thousands of people that are expected to be flocking to the region for the eclipse. And so we were pretty excited because, through those two committees that I mentioned, Mike is now going to be a drone pilot for the eclipse on Monday, and looking at traffic patterns, looking at the influx of people that are coming to the area, and what could SEMA expect as far as the people, obviously the influx, but then the outgoing folks after the eclipse is over. So we were really excited for the fact that we were going to get to participate. Mike's going to get to get to fly during the eclipse, hopefully with his special glasses on. You know, we got to be involved in that because SEMA was reaching out, and so Ryan and Mike were able to coordinate that. So do y'all have any questions either about the SRO program, or Mike or Ryan are happy to talk about the eclipse? You all probably saw Mike's post on social media that the health department's delivering 500 pairs of special glasses. 500 pairs of special glasses. So if you all need your special eclipse glasses, be sure and come and see us.
Okay. Excellent. Anybody have any questions? Mr. Ullman.
Thank you, sir. Chief, it's a topic you didn't mention, but given that both safety and the police department are so highly regarded in our citizen surveys, and it's one of the greatest assets of our city, according to our citizens, can you tell the council a little bit about how the Coffee with a Cop went at Centerview?
Oh, thank you, sir. That actually, and you know, we were a little concerned because Coffee with a Cop was the morning after, early the morning after that really serious rainfall, the first rainfall that we had, and so we were concerned that folks wouldn't come out because we had so much rain the night before, and there was obviously still some, you know, flooding at rush hour the next morning, and they did. Lots of folks came out. We had both single individuals, we had families, we had couples, we had a lot of folks who came out, and of course, you know, myself and the captains and all were there, but the officers, you know, were coming and going and having a chance to interact with young people, and it was also a great opportunity for us to showcase Centerview. And show people around in there, and so we will be absolutely continuing that program going forward, but you know, over the course of the couple hours, even though we thought the rain, you know, might have kept people away, you know, we had probably 50 people that came and went. And I'm sure Big Daddy's Donuts probably had something to do with a lot of it. It was not so much us as it was maybe the donuts, but it was a great opportunity for us to interact. And I was really pleased to see, even though it was early in the morning, that a lot of young folks came out with their parents to meet the police officers. So thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, thanks, Chief. Mr. Feuerborn.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chief Zimmerman. Just a reminder to the council that next Monday's work session agenda has a single item on it. It will be my honor to be transmitting my 31st budget to the city council that night. So here we go again on another year. As Mayor Alonso used to say, and it's very, very true, and I think about it each year, it is the single most important transmittal that the council receives and the single most important planning document that the council receives at any given time, and it's done every single year compared to the rest of our plans. So very excited to be bringing it to you. That concludes staff reports tonight, sir.
Thank you. Any questions of staff? All right. We have no committee reports tonight, so we'll move on to the consent agenda. We have 2 items on the consent agenda. Is there a motion to dispose of that?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda to include items A, City Council minutes for July 24, 2017, and B, Centerview Door Access System Security Cameras Installation Acceptance and Final Payment.
Second.
Thank you. Motion been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Brings us to our unfinished business. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3284 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3284 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the mayor and city manager to enter into an agreement with Terry Snelling Construction, Inc. for the 2017 sidewalk project, city project number 17-269-201 and 202, in the amount of $148,691, and authorizing the city manager to approve change orders within established budget constraints.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion to dispose of Bill 3284.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3284 for an award of contract for the 2017 sidewalk project.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3284. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. That takes us into new business. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3288 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3288 by title only, an ordinance pursuant to Section 67.110 of the Revised Statutes of Missouri, levying general and special taxes in the city of Raymore, Missouri for the year 2017.
The setting of the 2017 tax levy requires a public hearing. I'll open the public hearing at this time and ask for a staff report.
Thank you, sir. I would ask Ms. Watson to make the staff report for this item.
Thank you, sir. Mayor and council, the state law requires that each political subdivision in the state, excluding counties, must fix their ad valorem property tax rates not later than September 1st, entered into the tax books. The proposed 2017 tax levies are based on the principle of revenue neutrality mandated by the Hancock Amendment, and as well as the final assessment information received from Cass County. The levies that can be assessed based on these computations to remain revenue neutral for the general revenue is 44 80 cents. That's 0.4480 per $100 of assessed valuation. And for the park revenue, it's 12 600 cents. That's 0.1206 per $100 of assessed valuation. The debt service levy for the year is actually based on a different calculation, but is also ran through the computations of the state auditor's office. This can be set as high as 97 81 cents. That's 0.9781 per $100 assessed valuation. That is set to cover the debt service obligations of the city for the next 2 calendar years. But based on staff's understanding of council's desire to keep our revenue, our debt service levy the same as presented to the voters in the 2016 election, the tax levy for the debt service is presented at 71 70 cents. That's 0.7170 per $100 of assessed valuation. This will result in a decrease of 2 100 cents in the overall levy, which would result in 1.2856 as compared to the current overall levy of 1.3057. That concludes staff report.
Thank you. I don't think you can understate that to the public well enough. Can you please tell them again the amounts? It is actually going down.
Taxes are going down. It would be a decrease. For an average resident of a $200,000 house, it would mean a decrease of about $9 for your taxes.
Thank you. Hey, it's a decrease, right?
That's right.
Any questions of staff? Yeah. I think I heard somebody say that. Mr. Holman.
Thank you, sir. Just for those that don't know, our history of this, it's been 12, 14 years we have not raised this. Is that correct? And this year we're lowering it. Are those statements correct?
It decreased last year, and then based on our assessed valuation and the additional growth in the city, it calculates to decrease again this year.
And to reiterate what the mayor said, is the book I read, Taxes for Dummies, taxes are going down in this case.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Burke.
Question, but to be fair, if each person's home is assessed valuation's gone up, their numbers may vary. And if their property has gone up,
Let me take it.
since it's worth more, the actual number that they pay may not reflect that decrease. So before people get angry.
Actually, this year, that is not the case.
That is not the case?
Their taxes will actually go down. The growth that that Mr. Cataret talks about each year that is so phenomenal in the city, the formula that is used by the state auditor's office in any given year, there are 2 numbers that apply to where the levy gets set. And One of those numbers is the calculated inflation rate by, it's either the state auditor, is it the state tax commission? I believe it's state tax commission.
Yes.
The state tax commission sets an inflation rate which we can never figure out where they get that inflation rate from. And then we have our actual growth. And so the revenue neutrality is based on the lower of our actual growth or that inflation rate. This year, we smashed that inflation rate and went right through the ceiling of it. So we're being artificially lowered in the amount of revenue that we can collect compared to the growth that we've received. That applies back, the trickle down of that is back down to individual homes. So while we may make a little bit more overall in revenue because of our growth, when you apply that back to individual existing houses that were in what I call the picture frame of last year, those homes may very well pay a little bit less. It'll be de minimis, but they probably won't be paying more.
Is it, and this is something that I know I need to work on for my personal growth, but is it possible I'm getting confused with our personal property tax would be different? Or is this the same and I'm just not understanding the whole picture?
Well, it's possible that overall as the city, we're being forced to lower our general and our park, but our debt service, we're choosing to roll back. But the other municipalities, the other taxing entities, can choose not to do that. Okay. So if you are seeing an increase at a given time when we're decreasing, it could be because of the other taxing entities, not because of the city.
Thank you. I'll keep working on it.
And please do remember, you're actually right on the mark. There are two areas that these levies apply to. There is your real estate assessed valuation, and then there is your personal property. Both of those factor into this formula, and the overall assessed valuation of the city, I'm really going to put her on the spot, went from to, Cindy, I think it's on Form A.
It went from 1.3057 to 1.2856.
No, our assessed valuation, our total dollar amount, our value.
I have that as well.
Because that total assessed valuation is the personal property added to the real estate as well. And that number was last year?
$290,902,454. And this year, the calculation is $915,279. So we did have a considerable increase.
In our value, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly did. Anyone else? Thank you, Sydney. That brings us to the audience input portion of the public hearing. If there's anyone in the audience that would like to address the council on this particular topic at this time, I get a thumbs up back there from a resident. If there are none, I'll close the public hearing at this time and open it up for discussion. Anyone from the council care to broach the topic at this time? Mr. Fearborn.
Need a motion prior to discussion, sir.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3288 for setting the 2017 tax levy as identified in the staff memo with a total tax levy of 1.2856 per $100 of assessed valuation.
Second.
Thank you for bailing me out there. And so we have a motion and a second to approve Bill 3288. Discussion. Mr. Holman.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, again, Mr. Cataract, I say it from time to time, phenomenal news when you speak. We hear about the growth. And to celebrate that, I'm going to step out on a limb a little bit here, but I think Kevin and I will each take our $9 in savings, take you out to a fast food restaurant of your choice here within the city for that. Thank you very much.
There you go. Anyone else? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3286 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3286 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending various sections of the Unified Development Code of the Raymore City Code.
Thank you. This also requires a public hearing, so I'll open the public hearing at this time and ask for a staff report.
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Cataret to make this staff report.
Thank you, sir. Back in June of this year, the Planning and Zoning Commission completed its annual review of the Unified Development Code. At that time, there were 19 amendments proposed to the code that were discussed. The commission directed staff to prepare this 25th amendment. Back in July, on July 18th, a public hearing was held by the commission. They actually removed 2 of the 19 amendments from their recommendation to have further discussion. We'll be bringing those forth at a later time. But the commission did recommend approval of 17 of the amendments, and those amendments really cover 4 specific areas that I'll group all the amendments together in. Principally, the amendments provide clarification to various sections of the code. They do remove some conflicting language in one section of code. It establishes a requirement for a public hearing when we have a proposed new home in original town. We have design guidelines for the original town. It's actually the only area of the city that has specific city-established design guidelines for residential development. But there's occasion where a resident may need a waiver of a specific requirement, so we established a procedure for that. And then it also now requires parkland that's going to be dedicated as part of a new subdivision to be dedicated with the first plat, unless it is agreed to by the park board and the city to be done at a later time. As it is an amendment to our Unified Development Code, it does require a public hearing, which was advertised for this evening, and I do need to enter into the record our growth management plan, our Unified Development Code in its entirety, the notice of publication in the journal, and the staff report. The staff report does include proposed findings of fact from our Planning and Zoning Commission, and the commission did back on July 18th by a 9-0 vote accept those findings and are forwarding this 25th amendment to the council with a recommendation of approval. That would conclude staff report, sir.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions of staff? Yes, sir.
I had a couple of quick questions. With regard to the language that's added in for the storage units, just curious, the dialogue with regard to, if I'm reading this correctly, paragraph 3B, I'm sorry, let me get to the right section. We're adding in the definition of indoor storage units, but under general standards, we're saying that recreational vehicles are not permitted to be parked outside anymore. Am I reading that correctly?
Yes, sir. So what we'll have 2 classifications of self-storage facilities. One would be the typical self-storage that you would see where we have individual units with doors, as well as parking area for vehicles, campers, boats, et cetera. Those uses are allowed in our industrial areas only, not allowed at all within our commercial districts. What we're proposing with these amendments, we're proposing to add a definition of an indoor facility that would be allowed in our commercial districts, but it's entirely indoor storage only. So it is within those facilities where everything has to be within an internal hallway corridor with doors, no outside doors to units, and no outside parking of any vehicles. So if you had a vehicle, you would need to park it on an industrial zoned storage facility. So that was a distinguishment that we wanted to make in the code.
So for our existing storage units that are zoned, this would not apply to them?
That's correct. They are all located on industrial zone property where the outside parking is currently allowed.
Okay. And the petition that's currently before P&Z, that's in an existing industrial zoned area as well?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions of staff? Mr. Ullman.
Thank you, sir. And just dovetailing on that, I assume the reasoning would be if an individual decides to put an indoor storage unit into a commercial district, they could be literally next to a restaurant, theoretically, and you wouldn't want people storing outside units, wouldn't fit within the aesthetics of a commercial district in that case. Is that a
that's-
fair example?
That's exactly the reason that we were doing it. We wanted to allow for indoor facilities, of course, in our industrial area, but as well as some of our commercial districts. Maybe there's a building that would support an indoor facility, but we wanted to stay in keeping with the commercial character of the areas.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Mr. Burke?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On that same note, that would allow possibly for, there are indoor storage facilities that have multiple stories, so they could have it going up instead of out if they so chose to design such a facility. Is that?
That is correct.
Okay,
Yes,
thank
sir.
you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Mr. Carteret. That brings us to the audience input portion of this. If there's anyone in the audience that would care to address the council on this particular item, please step forward and state your name for the record. Seeing none? Oh. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing at this time, and I'll entertain a motion for disposal of Bill 3286.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3286 for the 25th Amendment to the Unified Development Code.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3286. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, please have the first reading of Bill 3287 by title only.
The first reading of Bill 3287 by title only, an ordinance authorizing and directing submission to the voters of the City of Raymore, Missouri at the election of November 7, 2017, the proposal for amendments to the Raymore City Charter recommended by the Raymore Charter Commission, further providing and proposing the form of ballot to be employed at said election concerning said amendments, and directing the city clerk to do all the duties called for and required by law in connection with the holding of said election.
So we're to that point where all that hard work is coming together. Mr. Feuerborn, you have a staff report?
A brief one, sir. The commission, having completed its final report and submitting that report to the City Council on July 17th, 2017, does require the council now to take ministerial action in order to put this item onto the ballot in accordance with Section 14.7 of the City Charter. The intent of staff's bringing it forward at this particular meeting, should it be passed by the council. The second reading would be at the second meeting this month, and then the charter ballot language that you see within this particular ordinance would be submitted to the county clerk on the Tuesday following and would be on the ballot for November 7th, 2017 for consideration by the voters of Raymore. That concludes staff report, sir.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions of staff? Mr. Holman?
Mr. Feuerborn, would that be the singular and only question for the city ballot at that election, or is there anything else that go with that?
The questions associated with the charter would be, yes.
I apologize, I didn't phrase that very properly. We don't have any other agenda items separate from that.
And the only reason I responded the way I did, sir, is because there was a lot of brain damage done by staff about the number of questions that would actually be proposed. So yes, these questions right now are the only things that are being proposed by staff or by the Charter Commission, and it would be virtually impossible to get something on in the next 3 weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else have questions of staff? Hearing none, is there a motion to dispose of the first reading of Bill 3287?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3287, calling for the November 7, 2017 election for the Charter Review Commission proposed amendments to the city charter.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3287. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, please have the first reading of Bill 3285 by title only.
The first reading of Bill 3285 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri establishing a procedure to disclose potential conflicts of interest and substantial interests for certain officials and candidates for elected offices.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, Your Honor. I will ask the city clerk to make a staff report.
Thank you. Bill 3285 is required by Missouri law for all political subdivisions with operating budgets over $1 million to adopt an ordinance at an open meeting, which makes public its methods of disclosing potential conflict of interest. The only officials for the City of Raymore required to file a financial disclosure statement for the following year are the Chief Purchasing Officer, the Chief Administrative Officer, and those employees and elected officials who have a transaction in excess of $500 with the City of Raymore. Thank you. That concludes my staff report.
Thank you. Any questions of staff? Hearing none, all those, is there a motion to dispose of Bill 3285?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3285, recognizing the financial disclosure ordinance.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3285. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion passes unanimously, 8-0. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3289 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3289 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri establishing an intergovernmental agreement with the Raymore Peculiar School District to provide school resource officer services for schools in Raymore and the East Middle School.
Thank you. Any questions of staff? Oh, sorry. Opens it up for a staff report. See, that's what I get for her giving a last staff report. I'm all confused.
Thank you, sir. I would ask Chief Zimmerman to make the report on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn. As I mentioned earlier during the staff report, this is a renewal of our existing agreement with the Raymore Peculiar School District. We have enjoyed an outstanding relationship with the district, and even with the movement of officers. Obviously, as I mentioned, Officer Bergman got promoted to Sergeant Bergman, and we were not going to leave him in the school, but we have excellent officers that work for our department, and so bringing in Officer Goddard really allowed us to do so without there really being much drama with the district, and he has created that same excellent relationship we already had. The SRO agreement that's before you is virtually the same agreement that we had in the previous year, other than, as I mentioned, the district wants to give us a raise, so we're not going to turn them down. Same number of days that we perform those services during the year, but the amount is being raised from 240 to 252 per day, per full day of service there. And as I mentioned earlier, Officer Goddard, as you see, it's all the schools that are in Raymore and then the East Middle School as well, where he actually has an office at that facility. So he is spread pretty thin. We want to make sure that he is in and out of all of those schools, interacting. Sometimes he'll just do a visitation, at the elementary schools, with the really small children. But he does spend, as you can imagine, a fairly significant amount of time at the middle school, where the issues that he deals with the students there are significantly different. But we feel like, again, this is a great benefit to our community because it extends much further beyond the time that he spends with the students during the course of a day and into the community and long after hours. So again, the agreement hasn't changed. We'll still be doing a lot of teaching and providing outreach to the community and things like that I mentioned earlier, like bullying and alcohol prevention and all form of instruction to the students, especially at the middle school, where now they're getting to an age where they're going to start driving and those sorts of things. So I'm happy to answer any questions. As I said, the agreement's virtually the same.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Mr. Kellogg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Chief, for the report. Just a point of clarification, does our SRO officer service our high school in Peculiar?
No.
No. Okay. What resources are out there for our students that are out there? Can you explain that?
Actually, the Peculiar Police Department has 2 SROs that service the high school, and they are both members of the Peculiar Police Department.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thanks, Chief. Anything else, Mr. Fearborn, on that one?
That would conclude staff report on this item, sir, except to say that Mr. Goddard Officer Goddard just does an outstanding job in these schools. And if at any point after this you would like any blackmailing material on Officer Goddard, I have a picture of him actually becoming a Timber Creek Elementary School official cheerleader last year.
I believe it was on Facebook. You all can see that with pom-pom.
I like it. All right. They go above and beyond, don't they? That's right. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to dispose of the first reading of Bill 3289.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3289 for an agreement with Raymore Peculiar School District for SRO services.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3289. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the, oh, Mr. Burke, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I just want to speak towards this. I deal not necessarily with Officer Goddard, but I deal with the peculiar SROs every day, and they are an outstanding asset to the district. I'm sure the same is the case for Officer Goddard. But they do provide another counselor sometimes for students that need it. Sometimes they provide a lot of times they provide me with a lot of brochures that I put in my classroom that students actually pick up and read when they are not necessarily liking to be in my room, but they do provide a positive interaction with teenagers and as well as the young kids. But it really is an excellent program.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? If not, all those in favor of the motion? Motion passes unanimously, 8-0. Thank you. That brings us to the public comment section of our agenda. If anyone would like to address the council, please identify yourself for the record and keep your comments to a maximum of 5 minutes. Elise, you don't want to say anything on behalf of your grandma or anything? You've got to be pretty proud of her, though, aren't you? Yeah. Okay. All right. Next item is then our mayor and council communications. Mr. Barber, you always get the short stick. You go first this time.
Wow. And I wasn't prepared. I wanted to start off by commending Commissioner Faulkner for his service. He actually is in my ward, Jay's and I ward, and we get to visit with him a little bit. And you know, he does do a lot for our city, and he has an important role and takes it very seriously. And when he made the comment at the end that he couldn't do it without everybody, he was truly speaking from his heart, because he's told me that many times. And so I just really appreciate his work. Mr. Crass, commend you and your department. I got invited to the dinner that you put on and actually got to sit with one of the reviewers. So everything that was said tonight, I had heard from the reviewer. He was in a leadership role for a county of about 500,000 people. And he said he'd never been to a city that had everything going for it like Raymore. And the 5 new model practices he spoke about over and over, and just couldn't believe, like they said, most of the time it's a couple, it's one. I would imagine a lot of times it's none, and to have 5, I knew it blew them away, and they were very, very impressed. And you know, somebody from basically he was from the Virginia area, coming to the Midwest right here, which we're known for the flyover area. He was very impressed. It really made an impression on him. And my wife was there, and she was impressed as well. So I really commend you on that. And I know that was a lot of hard work, and I know it's going to be continued, will be a lot of hard work. But I really appreciate, really proud to be a part of this. And thank you. Also, kind of a personal thing, my daughter came in for a couple of days visit. My oldest daughter, I don't get to see her very often. She lives in Houston. And we had some time this afternoon, and she asked me, what's new in Raymore? And so I got to take her in the car and drive her around. And I have to say, she lived in our home in 2000 when we built it. and so she's familiar with Raymore, and she was very impressed with what she saw. The new center view, took her around to some of the new housing developments and seeing all that going on, and she was really impressed and very surprised, I have to say. She comes during the holidays. A lot of times we don't have time to kind of go around and see the city, so we had a good time to kind of see and go it. So she was really, really impressed, which kind of brings me to the last part. Those new rooftops equal lower taxes. I kind of learned that tonight. You know, we always hear, well, Raymore doesn't get this, Raymore doesn't get this, why don't we get this? Well, people are building homes in Raymore, and on my notes here, I put equals taxes going down. So I hope that makes the paper. I mean, that is a really big deal. I mean, every time you get something in the mail from anybody you do business with, it's going up. It always goes up. Rarely does it go down. So I think that's a big positive. I don't want to abuse my being first, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Kevin. Mr. Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Wanted to thank Commissioner Faulkner. He was my initial mentor in city government, and really learned a lot there on planning and zoning. Learned that I enjoyed looking at civic functions, and that I wanted to continue it past the first time that I was on. And one time I had to run a meeting in his absence, and I looked at 3 or 4 meetings on the videos on YouTube and took copious notes to make sure that I did it the same way as Mr. Faulkner, and I made sure to thank the staff at the end, as he always does. Secondly, I wanted to say outstanding job of Public Works. Next thing, last week I talked about codes enforcement, and I wanted to make sure that I was clear that I feel like that a lot of codes enforcement is educational in nature, and we don't necessarily want to give fines or tickets, but we do want our community to look better and for us to be good neighbors. And I looked at the staff reports and the numbers in the codes enforcement that's going on this year compared to last year, and there's a tremendous amount of work being done there. And although I've not personally, I can't honestly remember our codes enforcement officer's name because I've not met with him. But I did want to say that I can see by the numbers that there's a lot of work that's not in the numbers, but you can see by the numbers that he's doing a tremendous amount of work in outreach with our citizens. Last thing, I was proud to say I looked up on the internet today that there are no known hate groups identified by the Southern Poverty Resource Center in Cass County. In 2000, or actually in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was a group out of Wisconsin that tried to get a foothold in our high school at Ray Peck, and with the efforts of city leaders from both Raymore and Peculiar, and also our school staff at the time, we sent them packing with the FBI, and they did not stay here. They were actually passing out hate speech in the parking lots. They were passing out CDs with hate music, and it was kind of a scary time. And with some of the things that have happened in our country in the last few days, I was very happy to see that there weren't any very close to us, and that speaks to a lot to the character of our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Abdel Gawad.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's always fun to come to a meeting and hear all of the great things we have in Raymore to be proud of. So we have Jerry Faulkner is definitely someone in our city who volunteers that we should be proud of. It was great to be able to recognize him tonight with the Civic Leadership Award. Our Public Works, of course, that entire department, and I know other departments in the city were also a part of that accreditation process. Like Mr. Barber said, the 5 model practices they told us tonight is basically unheard of, so definitely something to be proud of. Building permits continuing to be higher than they were last year, something else to be proud of. The great work of our police department with the Citizens Academy, preparing for the solar eclipse in emergency management, the SRO. I hear people brag about the SRO all the time, of course. My son just left the middle school and got to see Mr. Goddard often, and So definitely, I know that's something that we should be proud of in Raymore. And then finally, we can't not be proud of taxes going down. So just to repeat that again, the taxes going down. So fun meeting when you get to hear everything to be proud of in Raymore. So thanks to city staff and all the citizens of Raymore. This is a great place to be.
Thank you. Mr. Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too want to echo the congratulations of Mr. Faulkner, and his reputation precedes him, his mentoring different council members, and I haven't had the opportunity to serve with him, but in watching as well the videos of P&Z and seeing how he conducts business is commendable and is to be emulated, and congratulations to him on his outstanding work to the city. And the citizens definitely have benefited from his hard work and dedication to the city. Also to Mr. Crass and the Public Works Department, again, kudos to you and your staff for the accreditation. Also attended the meeting, or the dinner, excuse me, and talked with some of the inspectors. And having been on several inspection teams for the Marine Corps, it's always interesting when you go to different cities and locations and you're able to walk away with information that you can take to another organization that says, this is how it's done well, I've seen it, you should use it. And so Raymore, once again, has another opportunity to be emulated by other cities. So it's commendable to your staff, and as well as it seems like every session something's being presented by the staff that's being emulated somewhere else in other cities and other municipalities. So it's, again, kudos to the staff, to your staff, and to the Raymore staff as well for, again, to Mr. Faulkner's credit, it's the staff that's making it work. It's the staff that's making this position in my short time here, yes. It's very easy and it's very commendable to the staff because your professionalism, time and time again, shows through with your dedication, not only to your profession for seeking outside. It's well received and it's well pleasing when you hear peers commend you for your work. And you hear your peers wanting to emulate what you do and take back and how they can employ that in their own section. So that's, again, outstanding kudos to everyone on the staff, continuing to strive to do better. They don't sit back on their laurels. They recognize it and find ways to do better. And that's, again, outstanding, and kudos to the staff and the department heads for challenging and leaning into that. And the citizens of Raymore definitely benefit from it. So, again, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Berenson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Like Mr. Townsend talked about being on an evaluation team in the military, I was on the other end of that, so I was in a unit that was evaluated quite a bit. To have just one best practice was quite an honor, and it's amazing that you had 5. So, again, I wanted to call that out, and that's great. I was also sitting with Mr. Barber at the same table, and then heard the gentleman say everything about you, and I'll back up what he said. So, great job to you, Mr. Faulkner, Commissioner Faulkner. What a consummate professional. I got to work on that commission for a while, and he was a great example there. Also, very happy about the tax levy. It's great that we were able to reduce taxes. And one thing I also want to mention, I know, I think the police department, we got to partake in the tribute to the fallen officer. Was it Gary Michael? So I saw that on Facebook, and I'm glad to see that we were a part of that, and it was quite a neat thing to see. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Kellogg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And before I forget it, I believe I saw a picture of part of our police department and South Metro honoring that officer's procession going south down Interstate 49 on one of our television channel pictures on the internet. Am I correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And I am so proud of everybody that participated in that and honored that true hero. Thank you. Hats off to them for all you do. You know, you are all in the line of it, and I don't want to say thank God that it wasn't us, because it was. Anybody that falls is one of us. So thank you for taking care of your brothers and sisters and family in the law enforcement. Also, When Mr. Burke asked the question about assessments going up and that, I had that same question. And I have to say, you know, when I got my assessments this year, I felt pretty darn proud. My assessments went up, you know, but then I had the hammer fall down on, I mean, reality. Well, that means my taxes are going up. No, they aren't. They, you know, I've already checked it. My assessments went up, my taxes went down. What better of a deal is that? I don't care if it is $9 or $90. It's still going in the way that I like it. So, you know, I don't see too many other communities able to say that, you know. And I'll even go as far as say this, you know, I work with many people that live in Cass County in many of the different communities, and several live in Raymore, and we've even got some of the cheapest water in Cass County, if not the cheapest. So, you know, I just can't say enough about Raymore, you know. So that's what I got to say about that. Congratulations, and I was able to speak with a couple of the folks in not planning and zoning, but Public Works Department before the meeting. Went and personally thanked them because I knew that was going to be, you know, again, congratulations, Mike, your staff, and everybody. That truly, truly proud of each and every one of you for everything you've done for this. Amazing, you know, and I'm so happy that the gentleman came in to present that. He did a fabulous job, so congratulations. Then also, congratulations to Commissioner Faulkner. I was able to serve with Commissioner Faulkner for 2 years before I came on the council, and that was my first introduction to civics and municipal government, and I enjoyed the P&Z so much, and Jerry Faulkner was definitely a part of that, if not the biggest part. I've also had the privilege and honor to work with Commissioner Faulkner at where I work. Not only do we hold him in the high regards that we do here, but that is also the very same thing that you hear at work that I can't talk about. He is held to those highest regards, and it's so nice to be able to know him in not just in the civic, but professionally. You know, he's consistent. Absolutely consistent. What you see here is what I see at work, and the professionalism, the commitment, the concern, the passion with Commissioner Faulkner, it is, in my opinion, across his whole being, his whole life, and everything that he comes in contact with. So I absolutely think he's absolutely deserving of it, and I'm proud of him, and I'm proud to have him in Raymore and everything he's done. And that's really all I got.
Okay,
thank you.
Mr. Holman.
Thank you, sir. Congratulations to Mr. Icky for being selected as the pilot of the Eclipse. That may be kind of like being selected pilot of the Enola Gay, I'm not sure. But I think we kind of forgot you in the mix. A lot of people getting congratulations, and I too have to speak very highly of Jerry Faulkner. I started city service about 10 years ago with him as chairman on the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I have said repeatedly, if you don't like how I operate within the city, you blame him, Jim Catterett, and Joe Willerth, because they were my initial teachers. Jerry is probably the most even-tempered, thoughtful, and thought-provoking guy among the group that I've ever met. He really keeps that group at a very even keel. Even when things used to get hot years ago between people, he really did a good job with that. He also really likes to bring out differing opinions of people. He asks for that. He looks to see the flip side. So he really has done a lot of the heavy lifting on those items before it ever comes to us and helps us guide us in our decisions. And a fantastic individual. Again, I couldn't agree with that decision anymore. Mr. Crass, I could have told those people from the APWA what they needed to know. They didn't have to make the visit here. Drive into town from the other side, and you'll know what you need to know just by a visual look at this city. I've said for years, I think that your department and you do a fantastic job of keeping up our city and our infrastructure. I see it and I feel it every day. I think everybody in this group and everybody in this town does. Please keep up that level of excitement. You're one of those groups that goes unnoticed, I think, a lot of times. People don't think about the people that work for Mr. Crass and the work they do until there's a pothole and they got something to complain about. but they do such a good job. They really do. Our city looks very, very good. It's now being recognized by professionals in your industry as it should be. That's outstanding work, sir. Very, very good. Last thing I will say is that goes hand in hand with everything we've heard tonight, and I'll dovetail a little bit on Councilwoman Abdel Gawad's comments. Raymore, I said for a long time, is becoming, and now it has become, a flagship city in the region. There's no doubt about that. We are first class across the board in all of our departments and everything that we are doing, and we are continuing going in that direction. And I heard an interesting comment this weekend. We had a very large military group that had a function at Centerview, and there were no less than 2 bird colonels and a general that made the comment, "What a fantastic place." Doesn't get much higher praise than that, folks. We are headed in the right spot. We really are. It's good news. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Moorhead.
Well, I'll say that following all those comments, while Mr. Barber normally complains that comments were stolen, I don't mind repeating, so I won't have a problem tonight. You know, the first thing that really stood out to me tonight after spending so many years working with Jerry Faulkner on the Planning and Zoning Commission was the demonstration of humility, which is something I think some of us tend to forget, but he is a consummate professional, especially, I mean, this man truly speaks softly and carries a big stick, and on planning and zoning, he really does set a professionalism bar that many could not attain, but yet is very open and receptive to others. It was a joy to serve with him. To hear that he was being recognized was long in coming, and again, the man just was as polite and as courteous as can be. I mean, I am still a little concerned about his views on urban chickens. That's a conversation for another day. But other than the disturbing opinion that he has on that, his practices across the board are stellar. Speaking of model practices, Mr. Crass and I shared a few comments for the meeting tonight when I was asking him, it's a good day when there's not a pipe burst or things like that, and you know, as someone who goes through evaluations and is judged by internal control standards, things like that, it is a wonderful top-down commendation to be recognized for model practices, but I still can't help but commend you guys for all the do that you do, not just the rules. You know, tonight I made the mistake of trying to take a back road home, and I caught 155th Street near the bridge, and I could not pray to get to Raymore quick enough. But, you know, all the times that I've gotten up late at night and seen crews working out in the rain or the dark or the cold, and to see the early morning hours and just some of the things your staff does. So while I commend you for your administrative successes, I still have to acknowledge that you have a fantastic team that provided such a wonderful output that we experience every day, and it means a great deal, and we're very appreciative of that. And then my final thing I have to say to Mr. Fearborn, you know, it's kind of a common theme here tonight. We've got a lot of very good departments here, and it's really neat how often we're seeing these awards and recognitions. You know, I've had the joy of seeing all 3 of the people on the right side of my room here get recognized by their peers as well as others, and including our police department, our parks, and other departments. It's a true joy to serve this city and to work with you guys. So that's where I'll end. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Well, thank you, sir. Yeah, ditto, Mike. Great job on that accreditation. As coming from law enforcement, both the chief and I know about accreditation programs and how much work that brings onto yourself as well, ongoing, not just achieving that accreditation, but there's a lot of ongoing hard work that goes with that and maintaining that accreditation as well. And I know you guys are up for the challenge. Congrats to staff. One award that slipped by that we failed to recognize was the budget award for the 13th year in a row, was it? We I think it was 13, maybe 14 years in a row.
I'd ask Ms. Watson, but she's in her office right now working on the budget.
Well, there you go.
But I believe it is the 13th year.
And that particular award comes from the GFOA?
Government Finance Officers Association.
Yes. And congratulations on that. I know we got that about a month ago, didn't we? We got notice on that, and that got bypassed by us. I apologize for that. Again, as you said earlier, it is the most important thing that this body has to do is oversee the budget. So I appreciate all the hard work you and your team put into that. Mr. Faulkner, he's pretty awesome. I got to tell you, I sit on the planning and zoning now and have come to appreciate Jerry's work. And I wanted to say thank you to Mr. Kellogg, because when the nomination information came out, Mr. Kellogg was immediate in his responses. Mr. Faulkner deserves to be recognized, and he absolutely did deserve to be recognized, sir. I appreciate you helping me put that nomination together. He's just a great guy and well deserving of that award. And I would be remiss if I didn't brag about my grandson, Henry James Turnbow, was born at 26 minutes after midnight Sunday morning, 9 pounds, 2 ounces. Mom and baby doing great. And he's beautiful. He's absolutely gorgeous. So but I'm not prejudiced at all. It's my 3rd grandson. But I had to say that. My kids would kill me. But thank you, and if there's nothing to come before us tonight, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adjourn. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? We're adjourned. Thank you.